Mama, he asked slowly, why do you and Daddy make those weird noises at night? Sarah froze, the laundry basket teetering in her hands, her face flushing instantly. What noises? She asked, trying to sound casual. The ones where you say, oh yes, don't stop, but Daddy is already in the room. In a small town nestled between rolling hills, there was a modest house with peeling paint and a creaky wooden door. Inside lived Tom, a bright-eyed 10-year-old with an endless curiosity about the world. He loved asking questions, often making his parents squirm with his too thorough inquiries. Alongside him was his younger sister, Emma, who had a knack for copying everything Tom did, no matter how strange or confusing. One afternoon, as the golden sun streamed through the windows, Tom's mother, Sarah, was folding clothes in the living room, humming softly to herself. Tom, with his usual air of seriousness, walked in with his hands behind his back. Mama, he asked slowly, why do you and Daddy make those weird noises at night? Sarah froze, the laundry basket teetering in her hands, her face flushing instantly. What noises? She asked, trying to sound casual. The ones where you say, oh yes, don't stop, but Daddy is already in the room, Tom replied, his tone both innocent and matter-of-fact. Sarah's eyes widened in shock, and she quickly dropped the basket onto the floor. Where did you hear that? She stammered, her voice faltering. Tom, without missing a beat, answered, I heard you and Daddy in your room last night. It was so loud that the whole house shook. What do you mean, shook? Sarah asked, her face growing redder by the second. Like the bed was bouncing, Tom said. I even heard you say, don't stop, please. Sarah's heart skipped a beat, and she felt the blood drain from her face. She quickly glanced at the door, her mind racing to find an explanation. Oh, that noise, she said, her voice growing increasingly strained. Sometimes Daddy and I, we just, have special exercises to keep our relationship strong. Tom, ever the skeptic, furrowed his brow. But you said Daddy is already in the room, and don't stop, he repeated. Isn't that a little weird? Sarah's mind was racing. She wasn't prepared for a conversation like this, especially not at 10 in the morning. She could feel the embarrassment rising in her chest, her face burning with humiliation. Desperate to end the conversation, she quickly pointed toward the door and said, Tom, go brush your teeth, now. Tom, ever obedient, turned around and left, but not without muttering under his breath, I still don't get it. As he walked down the hall, Tom's mind was filled with questions that only grew larger. What was this special exercise his parents were talking about? And why did they make such strange noises while doing it? His curiosity was like a fire, burning brighter with every passing second. He had to find out. That night, after his parents had gone to bed, Tom decided to take matters into his own hands. He crept down the hallway like a ninja, his bare feet making no sound on the cold wooden floor. When he reached his parents' door, he paused, his ear pressed against the wood. The house was eerily quiet, and for a moment, Tom wondered if he had imagined the whole thing. But then, just as he was about to turn away, he heard it. The unmistakable sound of his parents' voices. Oh yes, don't stop, his mother said. Tom's eyes widened, and his heart skipped a beat. He pressed his ear harder against the door, straining to hear more. The bed creaked, and the noise of it shaking echoed through the walls. Tom's mind was spinning. This was real. It wasn't a dream or his imagination. His parents were definitely making those strange noises. He quickly retreated to his room, his head buzzing with 1,000 questions. What was happening behind that door? What kind of exercise was this? He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the image of his parents' actions from his mind. The next day, he met up with his friends at school, eager to get answers. Hey guys, do your parents make noises at night? He asked casually, trying to sound as innocent as possible. His friends burst into laughter, thinking he was joking. What kind of noises? one of them asked, raising an eyebrow. Tom shrugged nonchalantly. You know, like shaking the bed and saying stuff like, "Don't stop," he said. The boys fell silent, their eyes wide with shock. You heard that from your parents? One of them whispered. Tom nodded proudly, a small grin spreading across his face. Yeah, it's happening every night. His friends exchanged glances, unsure whether to believe him or not. One boy, who was known for his sneaky ways, leaned in and whispered, "Next time you hear it, look through the curtain. Watch closely, and you'll see everything." Tom's eyes widened. This was exactly what he had been waiting for, a chance to figure out what was really going on. He couldn't wait for that night to come. As the day wore on, Tom's mind raced with thoughts of what he might find. Could it be as strange as he thought? Would his parents' exercise turn out to be something he couldn't even begin to understand? Only time would tell. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars twinkled above, Tom lay in bed, counting down the minutes until he could uncover the truth. Would tonight finally be the night he solved the mystery of the strange noises? Only time would tell. That night, as the clock struck 10 p.m., Tom felt his heart race with anticipation. He had never been this eager for bedtime before. Normally, he would drift off to sleep, but tonight he lay wide awake, waiting for the sound. The house was quiet, too quiet, and every creak of the floorboards seemed louder than usual. His parents were already in their bedroom, the door closed. Tom knew they would soon be settling down for the night, and his chance to investigate would arrive. He glanced over at his sister Emma, who was already asleep in the bed across from his. Her soft breathing was the only sound in the room, and Tom envied her peaceful slumber. He, on the other hand, had a mission, one that he couldn't shake from his mind. He knew what he had to do. He slowly slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Emma, and tiptoed toward the door. His bare feet barely made a sound as he padded down the hall toward his parents' room. Every step felt like a drumbeat in his chest, but his resolve was stronger than the fear creeping up his spine. He reached the door, pressed his ear against it, and waited. For a few moments there was nothing. He began to wonder if maybe he had imagined it all. Maybe his parents' exercise was just a figment of his overactive imagination. Or perhaps they had stopped doing it altogether. But then, just as he was about to give up, he heard it. A soft murmur. "Oh yes, don't stop," his mother's voice whispered, followed by the familiar sound of the bed creaking. Tom's eyes widened. This was it. His parents were doing it again. His heart pounded in his chest as he strained to hear more. The bed shook again, and his mother's voice, though faint, was unmistakable. "Keep going, Daddy." Tom's curiosity burned hotter than ever. He wanted to know what was going on behind that door, to understand the strange noises that filled their house every night. He couldn't just stand there listening anymore. He had to see it for himself. He backed away from the door, his mind racing. There was no turning back now. He had to follow through. He moved quickly down the hallway, back to his room, where he grabbed his flashlight from his desk. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. He crept back down the hall and stood by the curtains, just as his friend had suggested. This time, his heart thudded in his chest as he peeked through a tiny gap in the fabric, his flashlight in hand. What he saw made his stomach churn. His parents were on the bed, and the scene was exactly as he had imagined, only much more confusing. They were moving in rhythm, and the bed was bouncing with every shift. Tom felt a sudden wave of discomfort wash over him. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. This was something he wasn't meant to see. He quickly retreated, heart pounding, feeling a strange mix of embarrassment and curiosity. He crawled back into his bed, trembling slightly. Emma still hadn't stirred. Tom lay there, staring at the ceiling, his mind spinning. What did he just witness? What was this exercise that seemed so strange? Was this what grown-ups did when they were alone? He didn't know how to process what he had seen. But one thing was certain. His curiosity wasn't going to let him rest until he figured it all out. The next morning, over breakfast, Tom was unusually quiet. He had so many questions swirling in his mind, but he didn't know how to ask. Emma, on the other hand, was in her usual state of excitement, babbling away about the dreams she had the night before. Tom barely heard her. His mind was too focused on the events of the previous night. He was trying to piece it all together, to make sense of the strange scene he had witnessed. Finally, he could take it no longer. "Hey, Emma," he whispered, leaning toward her. "Do you know what Daddy and Mommy were doing last night?" Emma looked up from her cereal, her eyes wide. "What do you mean?" she asked, clearly confused. Tom glanced around the kitchen, making sure no one else could hear. "You know, they were making weird noises and shaking the bed," he said, his voice low. Emma's face scrunched up in thought. "Shaking the bed?" she asked. "Like when we jump on it?" Tom shook his head. No, it was different. It wasn't like jumping. Emma didn't seem to understand, but that didn't surprise Tom. She was younger, and there was no way she could have grasped what was going on. Tom's curiosity was growing by the minute, and he felt like he was about to explode with the need for answers. But where could he turn? His parents weren't going to tell him the truth. Not after last night. He could already picture the way his mother's face had turned red when he had asked her about the noises. She had quickly dismissed it, but he could tell she was hiding something. Tom knew that if he wanted answers, he would have to find them himself. That night, after dinner, Tom's parents were sitting together in the living room, watching TV. Tom glanced at them, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. They were laughing, relaxed, and seemingly oblivious to the investigation he had launched. He had a plan in mind, but it would take patience. He couldn't just rush in and ask them outright. He needed more information, something concrete, something that would make sense of all the weirdness he had uncovered. He didn't know yet what that information would be, but he was determined to find it. He glanced at the clock. It was 9:30 p.m. The night was still young, and he had plenty of time to continue his investigation. He would be ready. The next night, Tom's mission was clear. He had to find out exactly what was going on in his parents' bedroom. His investigation had already revealed more than he could have ever imagined, but he wasn't satisfied yet. He needed more answers. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Perhaps a clue, an explanation, or maybe something that would finally make sense of the strange noises and behavior. That night, he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the familiar sounds to start. His heart pounded in anticipation. It was just past 10 p.m. when he heard it again. The bed creaked. There it was, the noise he had been waiting for. "Oh yes, don't stop," his mother's voice whispered. Tom felt a mix of nervousness and curiosity rise within him. He wasn't sure why he was still so fascinated by it, but he was determined to get to the bottom of it. Slowly, he slid out of bed, careful not to wake Emma, who was still peacefully asleep. He grabbed his flashlight and moved toward the door. The house was silent except for the occasional sound of his parents' muffled voices. This time he was prepared. He had to get closer. He crept down the hall and stopped in front of the bedroom door, listening intently. His parents' voices were getting louder, and the bed creaked again, this time with more force. Tom's stomach churned. His eyes darted to the curtain across the hallway. He had to see it again. His friend's advice echoed in his mind. "Look through the curtain next time, and you'll know everything." He quickly moved to the window and peeked through a tiny gap in the curtain. What he saw made his heart race. There, in the dim light, his parents were moving in sync, their bodies entwined in a way that made Tom feel confused and uncomfortable. The bed bounced with every movement, and his mother's voice rang out again. "Don't stop." "Daddy, don't stop!" Tom's eyes widened, and for the first time, he felt the full weight of what was happening. His mind was spinning, and he felt both embarrassed and confused. He had never seen anything like this before, and he wasn't sure how to process it. Was this normal? Was this what all parents did when they were alone? His thoughts were racing, but before he could even gather himself, he felt a hand on his shoulder. "What are you doing?" Emma whispered, her voice low and sleepy. Tom nearly jumped out of his skin. He hadn't heard her get up, and now she was standing behind him, her big brown eyes wide with confusion. "Nothing," Tom muttered, quickly moving away from the window. Just checking on something. Emma raised an eyebrow. Checking on what? She asked, clearly not buying his excuse. Tom hesitated for a moment, but he knew he couldn't hide the truth from her. I was, looking at Mom and Dad, he admitted quietly. Emma's eyes widened in understanding. Oh, she said, her voice full of curiosity. What were they doing? Tom sighed, feeling the weight of the secret he had just uncovered. He didn't know how to explain it to Emma, or if he even could. I don't know, he said finally. But I think it's something for grown-ups only. Emma's face scrunched up, clearly confused. But why do they make those noises? She asked. Tom didn't know how to answer. He felt uncomfortable, like he had stumbled onto something he wasn't supposed to see. I don't know, he repeated. But we're not supposed to talk about it. Emma looked disappointed, but she didn't press him further. Tom felt a strange sense of relief wash over him as she walked back to her bed, settling back under her covers. He, on the other hand, couldn't sleep. His mind was too busy processing what he had just witnessed. He had never felt so unsure of what was happening in his own house. His parents were supposed to be the ones with all the answers, but now he was the one who was confused. What kind of exercise was this? Why did it make such strange noises? And why was it something that only grown-ups did? He couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, at school, Tom couldn't focus. His friends were chatting excitedly about the latest game, but all Tom could think about was the strange scene he had seen the night before. He was still struggling to understand what had happened. His curiosity gnawed at him, but there was one thing that bothered him more than anything else: the mystery of it all. Why did his parents hide this from him? Why didn't they explain it to him when he asked? He didn't know how to approach the subject with them again, but he felt like he had to. He couldn't just let it go. That night, after dinner, Tom finally decided to confront his parents. He had to get some answers. "Mom, Dad," he said hesitantly, sitting down across from them at the kitchen table. "Can we talk?" Sarah looked up from her phone, surprised. "Sure, what's on your mind?" Tom felt his heart race. He had been preparing for this moment all day, but now that it was here, he wasn't sure how to begin. I just don't get it," he said, his voice wavering slightly. "Why do you and Daddy make those noises at night?" There was a long, uncomfortable pause. Sarah exchanged a quick glance with her husband, then sighed. "Tom," she said softly, It's something that adults do when they're alone. It's a private thing, and you're not ready to understand it yet." Tom blinked, feeling both relieved and confused. "But why do you do it every night?" he asked. "Is it fun?" Sarah paused before answering. "It's not about fun, Tom," she said. "It's about showing love for each other in a special way. It's something that married people do to stay close." Tom didn't fully understand, but he nodded slowly, trying to digest the information. It wasn't what he had expected, but at least now he had an answer. "So it's not weird?" he asked, still uncertain. "No, it's not weird," Sarah assured him. "It's just private." Tom sat quietly for a moment, thinking. "Okay," he said finally. "I think I get it now." As he left the room, he felt a strange sense of relief wash over him. His curiosity had been satisfied, and although he still didn't fully understand, he felt a little better about everything. It was a private thing for grown-ups, and that was all he needed to know. As he lay in bed that night, Tom closed his eyes and felt a sense of peace wash over him. No more sneaking around. No more trying to crack the code of his parents' private world. He had learned what he needed to know, and that was enough for now. He couldn't help but smile at the memory of the wild ride he had been on. The questions, the answers, and everything in between. There was a time for curiosity, and there was a time for letting go. Tom had figured that out, and as he drifted off to sleep, he knew that some mysteries were best left untouched. After all, it was not always about the answers, but about growing up and understanding the importance of boundaries, trust, and love. As the night fell silent and Tom closed his eyes, the once puzzling noises from the bedroom no longer seemed so strange. They were simply a part of life, And Tom, in his own way, had learned to accept that.